Hello, and today's video is a little bit different. I've just looked at the length of time in total, and it seems to go on forever, so I do apologize. So what I would do is, actually, before I say that, today I'm wearing this dive watch by Amida, and it's their 45mm dive watch, and I have it on this blue dive strap with the no dive limits measurement on it, and I thought it was really cool. And I'm trying to find a way that I can keep the watch on without it looking ridiculous when I put it up to the camera. And maybe you can see it there. But it is such a, again, what is it that I like? I like the design. I do like the design. I love the orange minute hand because it gives it some interest. The color contrast gives it interest. It has a blue sunray dial, and then it has this blue rubber strap with the no decompression limits written on it. And I don't know if you're capturing the blue color there. Maybe you are, but you just imagine walking on the beach in the summer, or in sunshine. That is going to look really super. Anyway, there you go, blue dive watch. And yeah, so in a moment this little thing will end. And I mentioned my 12 Kings. So these are what I believe are the top watch brands in the world. They are the 12 Kings. That they rule the roost when it comes to wristwatches. And as I was writing it down, I thought, I can't do this properly, that there can't just be 12, because there are so many other brands out there that I need to talk about to give the 12 context. So I ended up on a piece of paper with 25. In fact, I ended up with about 60, and I thought 60 is too many. I've got to mention some other brands, and so I ended up with a list of 25. But the top 12 are still there, and I briefly chat about them. And in fact, I briefly chat about all the other 25, and I apologize. It goes on forever. I think it's about half an hour of me waffling about these brands. But anyway, if you don't want to see or listen to me waffle on for about half an hour, switch off right now, because, or I'll give it 1 minute, and then you'll see the 12 Kings, and then you can switch off. Anyway, I hope everyone is well, and speak again soon. So I don't know how this video is going to come out, but let's give it a whirl and see how it goes. Okay. So the 12 Kings. Now, in the context of wristwatches, and really it is just my opinion, the 12 Kings refers to the your Premier League, Division 1, your first team players. So every name here in the 12. Is the best of the best. These are your watch brands that deserve a lot of respect. As a business, it's outstanding what they've done. They have great fan bases. They have a great, watch product set, and and they really are super duper. Now, so of course, there are a lot more watch brands than this. And in actual fact, I've actually had to extend the list to the top 25. But I'll stick with the the 12 Kings, and we'll just see where we get to here. Now, of course, it is amazing. And I've said in other emails that G-Shock is the #1 watch brand in the world, in my opinion. And followed by Richard Mille, and I know that many people will think to themselves, look, these are great watch brands, but they're not #1 and 2, and I'm aware of that. But I'm prepared to offer an argument that concludes that these two, might certainly be the top. Now, I think what kind of helps justify that, and I know it seems strange, is that I have Rolex in at number 3, Omega number 4, Seiko, including Grand Seiko, at number 5. And notice I've got Seiko, including Grand Seiko. And also at number 1, actually that reminds me, Casio featuring G-Shock. And then number 6, IWC. Now, many people are going to think, number 6, IWC, are you sure? And then I point them to TAG Heuer at number 7. And, that really is an interesting one. And but one of the reasons I like TAG Heuer so much is in the 90s they produced the Formula 1 with the plastic bezel, and what a funky, brilliant watch that was at the time. It was excellent, and I am sure they're going to reproduce this watch or something very similar. And then we have Cartier at number 8, Swatch at number 9, Longines creeps in there at number 10. JLC in at number 11, and for me GLC, those square watches that and the Reversos that they make. In fact, I should have put Reverso, not square tank there, but JLC definitely is in the top 12. And then I squashed Patek in the top 12 because Patek is such a lovely company. They have been very nice to me, and I've put in brackets here number 12, but I was so horrified because I've seen so many Pateks that have been iced out, and it makes me think, how can you ice out a Patek Philippe 5711, for example? I've seen some horrible iced out Pateks. Now I know Patek hasn't done that, and I'm sure that Patek offer some iced versions, but I've seen some aftermarket iced versions, and it's just horrifying, and it left such a bad taste in my mouth. It made me think, I won't move Patek from the top 12. It's still a king, but it has to be dropped right right to the bottom at number 12. Now, you think this is, a bit of a mess. Let's go to number 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. 19, 20. Let me just, bring you the whole scale here. Right, so we have the 12 kings at the top. And then we have other brands that I had to mention. They had to come in the top 25. And I thought to myself, I can't make a video with just the top 12 and not bring in a top 25. So, well, really, I wanted to mention the other brands because I thought they needed a mention. And then I thought, in actual fact, I've got a list here, heading towards 60 brands. And I thought, I can't show all the brands, even though some other brands deserve to be here. I have to put a limit in somewhere. And I could have stayed, I could have had my limit at 12 and spoken about the 12. But I thought, I'm not doing it justice if I stick at the 12. I'm going to have to bring in the other brands that I've mentioned here. Right, so let's go to number 13. So this one didn't make the 12 kings, but it made number 13, and that is Apple. And I know that many people are going to say right now, Stephen, Apple really isn't a watch brand. How can you discuss Apple in the context of Swiss watches and Seiko and Rolex, Omega, and all the other brands mentioned? How on this earth can you bring Apple into this, because it's a smartwatch? And at times I think you can argue that it shouldn't be there, and I can understand that. But I think it has to be there because it is a device that looks a lot like a watch. It fits like a watch. It has interchangeable straps. It tells the time. It does other things. It is a smartwatch, and it's very well engineered and crafted. And because for many people, they wear the Apple Watch instead of a traditional watch. You know, it is really also a watch. And I thought, you know, not talking about the Apple Watch and just simply, you know, disregarding it probably wasn't, you know, doing it, you know, a conversation about wristwatches justice. So I thought to myself, it has to be there. And then I nearly forgot Panerai. And one thing about Panerai is that I remember, you know, many years ago now, I don't know how many exactly, but I was a bit younger. And I think we're going back about 10 years, maybe 15 years. And I remember I would see Panerais on people's wrists, and I thought to myself, that is actually quite cool. And it sort of looks like it might be Italian. It's a little big, but it's sort of cool because it's not a Rolex. Because what I was finding was that many people in the corporate world would have a Rolex, and it was becoming very hackney to have a Rolex. And then I noticed people did start wearing Panerai, as if to say this is the cool new thing. And I must admit, you know, I kept on looking at Panerai watches, and even though I was never really that drawn to them, and I'm not sure why, I'd always look at them and think to myself, that's pretty cool. And I really like that that person's wearing a Panerai. And so I thought to myself, Panerai deserves to be in the top 25, but I wasn't sure where it might fit. But then when I looked at Panerai with a little bit deeper, I looked at its heritage, I looked at the history behind it, and the fact it used to have Rolex movements, or a movement provided by Rolex. And I looked at some of the history around making that case. I thought, it's so cool, it just has to be there. And then Breitling came in, and you know, Breitling isn't really a brand that I like, but I thought to myself, I can really understand how good the brand is, and I can really see why people like it. And I noted, and I saw a couple of older brands, older watches by Breitling, chronographs with a polished silver case. And I do remember seeing those, again, you know, about the same time that I saw the Panerais about 15 years ago. And I thought, Breitling is cool. And I sort of like the name. And at the time, their marketing, it was sort of cool. It wasn't anything that bothered me. And I thought, no, it is a big, valid brand name. And I know today that they've made some really super watches, but the ones that I like, they don't have a date. And for some reason, a three-hand watch, for me, it has to have a date. And if it doesn't have a date complication, for some reason, I need to see a complication. I really like if there's a power reserve on the dial, or some other complication, but just having a three-hand. And Breitling brought this watch out, and I forget its name, but it's a new watch. It looks great, it's well made, it doesn't have a date, but I thought, this is just me, it's my preference, you know. But that's why, you know, it got into the top 25. Now, you know, the 15 is still quite high, you know, so why is Breitling at 15? And I think once again, it's the heritage and the fact that it's so well known, and the fact that a lot of people like it, and then there's some really good value, and Breitling today is a very good value offering. And anyway, so it ended up at number 15. And then I know many people are going to say, you know, Bremont, even though they're a great company, how on this earth are they in at number 16 when we've got, you know, these heavyweights, you know, contending? Now, the thing is with Bremont is they're I suppose they're very new. They're run by Giles and Nick English, and as it turns out, I've met these guys, and I have to say they are super. Now, irrespective of that, I've based my decision not on that, because I didn't think it warranted, you know, this really. But I looked at, you know, again, what Bremont had done and their history and how they'd set up the business. And they'd really set up the business, you know, to be a player in the watch world. Their build quality is very, very good. They have inevitably originally, you know, gone for a movement made by ETA. Well, not all of it, but part of it. But their vision about Bremont, their backstory, where the name came from, how they've set their stall out, I can really see, I really appreciate them as a business, and I can see why anybody would like them. And I thought it's a brand that I suppose, I don't know, I find myself thinking this is a serious brand, it needs to be mentioned. And it gives me a similar feeling to MB&F. Now, you know, once again, obviously this is my opinion. MB&F are, when you look closely at them, and when you look closely at Max Buser, you start to see a really fabulous origin story, you know, like Bremont, but some really nice business practices. And then you look at the design and you think, that is unbelievable that they've actually thought to themselves, I know, let's create this spacecraft wristwatch and see how it goes. And then let's play around with these designs and see how they go and make something very different. And I thought, MB&F, they have to be in this list, because they share a little bit of Richard Mille, actually. There's a little bit of Richard Mille in MB&F. And I don't know if either of them would like me to say that, but what I see is that flair of design and you know, and huge focus on product and quality and design. And you know, I don't really have to say much more to watch enthusiasts for them to think, yeah, MB&F, they are great. They need to be they need to be on a list. Now, you have A Lange Sohne, a great super watch, and really no more than the fact that their watches are amazingly fantastic. And they have the and because I'm on camera, I don't remember the one watch that I really like. The is it the Zeitwerk? It's the mechanical digital watch that's very well known, and I absolutely think it's the bee's knees. But if you look at all their other watches, they're all absolutely amazing. The build quality, the design is just so great. But they do have one, you know, this is where being on camera, you freeze up when you can't remember the names. But there's a new watch that's very popular, but it has a very wide lug. So the straps look, for me, proportionally out of place. They're too wide. And but apart from that, every other watch I've seen looks fantastic. You know, they are a great company. That their watches are fabulous. They're really liked. Hamilton had to be there because, once again, there's so much heritage and value in those timepieces, and they are, and I like the name Hamilton. It just sounds like a good name. Then I've got Oris, then Bell & Ross, and you know, I think for me, you know, the names that are appearing here is because they are such good companies. Because their value proposition is so good, the designs are really nice, their customers like their product, they're nice companies, you know, they just had to appear here. Now, Vacheron Constantin here, I've got in brackets, lucky to be in the top 25, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but that was my reaction, and I thought to myself, why am I putting VC? Why am I putting Vacheron in this top 25? Because nothing's really jumping out to me, apart from the fact they are a super company, a super product, build quality amazing, the designs are nice, but I mean, none of them really appeal to me, but that's fine. I can still recognise that Vacheron is one brilliant company, and their products are brilliant. But because I think of other people's reference to Vacheron, and I know, and because once again, not mentioning them, would just seem criminal, I thought, they're going to have to be there on my list, and based on my opinion. Now, and then we get to Ressence, and the reason that Ressence is there is because they've done something very different. They have their, of course, their oil-filled watch with this wonderful two-dimensional dial that moves around like a sun orbiting a moon. Sorry, a moon orbiting a sun and a planet. And when I first saw that watch, it gave me such enthusiasm around the space of watch design, and I thought that's really technically very difficult what they're doing, but it has such a different look. I've heard people talk about it and they say it feels different, it looks different. They've really reached out, in the scope of design, and they've produced a nice product. And all I hear is people say nice things about them. And I thought, I've heard enough noise now to think to myself that this name and this watch brand has to be here. And it's a very similar experience that I have with Girard Perregaux. Once again, it's people's other reaction to Girard Perregaux that I think I'm reacting to. And the reason that I sort of, even though not really appealing to me, but I can really respect them, and I can really see why people like them and why people say nice things about them. And then we get to number 25, AP. And this is the one I struggled with because, and I know that, it's once again, it's very, opinion based. And many people will say, Stephen, AP should be at the top here. It should be in the top 6 or definitely in the top 12, but you shouldn't have AP at the bottom, at number 25. And and I've got in brackets here One Trick Pony and the 1159. Now, I must admit, I do like some of the Royal Oaks and the Offshores by AP. And I like looking at their what do they call it? Their off-beaten. I completely forget the name of their crazy watches, and I do apologise. I do forget, but I like those special edition watches. But the Royal Oaks, the Offshores, their new dive watch is lovely. But anything around the Royal Oak offshore, I sort of like it. I've never once wanted one, even though I do like them. But one of the things that really grated me, and and I'm one of those people that I really don't, let other people's opinions impact me that much. Really, I take a wider view than that. But the whole 1157 business, when they released that, I thought to myself, there's nothing I can really, I can't really get into this design. And the fact that the lugs are attached to the bezel and the lugs don't actually attach to the case, it was peculiar. And I remember the hype behind it, and I thought, is this hype real or is it paid for? Now, I'm assuming that it's real, and I'm assuming that people, do like that design, and I've seen some of their new 1159 releases, and I know the movements are fabulous. And the watch on the whole looks really nice, but for some reason the sort of design of it, this round design, it looks like it wasn't really designed. It looks like designers got together and they just created a round watch, and they stuck on some very pedestrian indices and a pedestrian handset, and some very good quality, well-made dials. and they added a bit of shape to the case, but the 1159 it seems a mistake. That's how it felt to me when I first saw it, but I still wanted to see it, and I wanted to, you know, try and like it, and I wanted to, you know, think to myself, I might like this. But every time I see the floating lugs, you know, that are only attached to the bezel, and I see the price tag, you know, it freaks me out, and it's not what I expect from the Royal Oak and Offshore, you know, heritage. I would have expect, you know, something else birthed out of Royal Oak and Offshore, and I'd expect the 1159 to be a watch that, you know, was very quietly released as a novelty, but something that wasn't really relied upon. And I was expecting AP to produce a new watch, you know, a different watch, something just not the 1159. And I think it was the 1159 that made me think, you know, I'm not sure that AP are, you know, one of the players anymore with respect to product design. Even though they can make continued reiterations of the Offshore and the Royal Oak, and that's fine, you know, because I don't criticize that. I mean, that's totally fine. But the 1159 really stuck out and made me wonder about the potential of AP's new designed watches. Now look, AP is a great brand, and you know, as a business, they are great. Their marketing is nice. What they do, how they behave is lovely. There's no doubt about it, AP. So I'm being just very opinionated here, and this is only my opinion. And you know, and you know, so I apologize for that. And also, it's just my, you know, again, it's my opinion. If you have an 1159 or like the 1159, or if you look at how it's marketed, if you look at those watches, they are wonderful products. You know, it's just my opinion, but my opinion has ended up putting the 1159 AP at the bottom of my top 25, and I just hope I haven't caused any trouble there. Anyway, so let's go back. So there are my there is the 12 Kings. For me, these brands here are the top of the watch industry, and you know, and I was very careful not to stick Apple into the top 12. But that's why Apple's at number 13, because the Apple Watch and smartwatches. And I've got in brackets mention Pebble. Now, when Pebble, so Pebble was a small startup, and it made a smartwatch that was very affordable. But one of the things that it did, and it was so unique, was it was Android and iOS compatible. So when you bought a Pebble watch, it didn't matter if you had an Android phone or an iPhone. You were going to download the app and be able to drive the thing. And I thought to myself, this is the biggest, quietest mover in the smartwatch space, and it could penetrate the watch market significantly. Anyway, Pebble was bought out, and I think it was bought out by Fitbit, and then Fitbit buried it. And I think that's a real shame, but Pebble had a massive future. What a fabulous product that was, and what a shame that it was bought out, and we don't longer have it. Anyway, this is in the range of Apple, and Apple's in at 13, and I think it needs to be at 13 because the Apple Watch and the smartwatch industry, you know, is a big deal. It has to be there. But going back, once again, we've got Casio featuring G-Shock at number 1. We have Richard Mille coming in at number 2. Richard Mille is in at number 2 because the designs are fantastic. What the company's done in 2 decades is really amazing. They are new, their designs are new, and their marketing is new. The culture around Richard Mille, even though it's high-end, it is odd, and it is successful. Now, you know, many people are going to argue Rolex, you know, is the king, you know, it should be number one. And I can understand why they might think it would be number one, but for some reason, I don't think they are number one anymore. And that's perhaps another video. Now, Omega had to be high, because when you look at Omega, they've been around, you know, all this time. They're, you know, for many people, they're just as big as Rolex. They're just as well known. The brand name is well known. They have a good range of different watches. The value proposition is great. The watches are reliable and they are light. And yeah, it had to be there, you know, somewhere at the top. Seiko. Because Seiko is such a big deal, especially in the lower end, and especially in dive watches, and especially in their customer base and their popularity, Seiko is super. There is a modern industry around Seiko, and it's huge. And if you look at their classic diver watch designs, you know, from the 70s, 80s, 90s and today, they've had, you know, the last 50 years of just solid popularity and unbeatable designs. And I think it's very easy to argue that Seiko are a top watch company. And so that's why they're in at number 5. IWC, when you come across IWC and you realize that they own the pilot watch space, and the quality is delightful. They used to have this really nice German feel that I really liked. You know, it felt like you were wearing a very good quality German car with excellent engineering, very solid, very reliable. You know, their old pilots used to have a Valjoux 7750. I love that movement. And it felt like you were wearing a piece of engineering, German engineering. And of course, anything resembling a pilot watch, you know, the IWC watch, you know, that was it. And in fact, when you go back at the 15 years, 20 years, everything that IWC produced was absolutely marvelous. IWC definitely, you know, are hovering around the top. And then, you know, TAG Heuer, Cartier, Swatch, Longines, JLC, Patek Philippe. They are the 12 kings. I know TAG Heuer is a funny one, but I think, you know, I think the name is cool. I think possibly the best name on this piece of paper is TAG Heuer. It's such a good name for a wristwatch if you think about it. And if you just Google and take a look at, you know, those 1990s, you know, they might have survived into the early, you know, noughties, but those plastic bezeled F1s, you know, what a fabulous watch that was. TAG Heuer have a lot of potential still. I don't know, they just had to be up there. Cartier, yes, they are interesting. I think they have too many options right now, and you know, there's too many different choices on the website, and they seem to be all over the place. But maybe they will turn around and say, look, our customers like the variation, and we like a different colorway and scheme and size for everyone. But they are big in the, you know, the female interest area. And of course, it's, you know, Cartier watches, for females, that's definitely, you know, I don't want to say anything that's wrong here, but in my opinion, you know, those watches are very popular with females in particular. Swatch, it just has to be there. If you remember those scuba swatches, I think it was the 90s, late 90s they came out, and in the noughties, and they probably still have them today. But these are affordable, high quality plastic watches that are colourful, and they are loads and loads of fun. Swatch brought out last year the Moon Swatch, and that was a massive hit. Saying that, I hate the thing. I'm not into plastic watches really. Well, actually, I am into the original jelly plastic watches that Swatch made, but the bioplastic thing, you know, the pretend plastic, these carbon fiber, bio materials, plasticky thing. I'm not really a fan. I was not a fan of the Moon Swatch, although I loved the colorways, I loved the presentation and the marketing, I loved the design and the collaboration. The only thing I disliked about the Moon Swatch was the horrible plastic case. But you know, that didn't put me off sticking Swatch in at number 9. Longines is just there, it's solid, reliable, affordable, great designs. They're not in your face, they're very credible, people like them, and that's why Longines is there. JLC has the Reverso. What a stylish, brilliant watch. If ever you don't want a Rolex or an Omega or a Pilot, but you want something that is, you know, highly cool, and perhaps you don't want to, you know, pay the price of a house, and you want something uber cool, you want it to be Swiss and mechanical, you buy a JLC Reverso. That's why that's there. And then Patek Philippe, they have to be somewhere in the top, and so that's why Patek is there. They're 5711 and now the 5712, the Nautilus watches. In fact, all the Patek watches, if you look at them, the way that they are over-designed, understated, high quality, and ooze sophistication, that's Patek Philippe. Anyway, that is the 12 Kings. I hope this presentation has been clear enough. I hope I haven't said anything too horrible, and I hope you can see it. And once again, I hope everybody is very well, and speak again soon.